must respond to in 45 days, and it's a statement of your financial affairs. You have to list all your assets, your income, whether you're head of household, your bank accounts, including the bank account numbers, and you must send that to your creditors within 45 days. Needless to say, not many people want to give their creditors a roadmap to where their assets are, but that is the law. Failure to comply with that part of the law, they will bring you into court for a contempt. Nobody wants to be there, okay? So that's how a deficiency works and how they get to collect upon your assets. With that, I will turn it back to Mr. Neal.
We're going to talk just a couple of minutes about is what happens after the foreclosure. Ed's already told you about the deficiency judgment that can be entered. What happens during that time between you've been foreclosed upon and the motion for a deficiency judgment is a very uncomfortable time for anyone, because you don't have this deficiency judgment entered against you, but you've lost your house. What I say at that time is you've got what's sort of a watchful waiting going on. Because if they file a motion for a deficiency judgment, you have to react. You have to, as Ed says, do something to try and contest the deficiency judgment, or in the alternative, and that's the alternative, is potentially file for bankruptcy protection. One other thing I wanted to just touch on is there's two different kinds of documents you may get from the bank. One is called a 1099-A, which is a document that says the property's gone away but doesn't forgive the debt. That one's a 1099-C, which says the property's gone away and they have waived your deficiency, and that's the one that the IRS will get to come after you for taxes. But what you need to do is, if you do get the pursuit for a deficiency judgment, certainly I would recommend that you first look at your asset position to see what you can do about it, to see if there's a way of negotiating a settlement with the lender. If not, then certainly the other option is to consider bankruptcy protection. And bankruptcy protection is, as Ed says, it's going to be on your record for 10 years. But it is an alternative, and it's an alternative that is a right given to you by federal law. And there are basically three different types of bankruptcy protection that the average person can look at. The first one is a Chapter 7 liquidation. Ed mentioned that. That basically says the trust, you go in, if you meet the income requirements, the trustee goes in and takes all your non-exempt assets and sells them off and pays it to your creditors and discharges all your debts. That's the simplified version of it, but that's what it is. Now, meeting the income, the means test for income is a very tortuous method, and there is a recent case where a former NFL football player making $150,000 a month filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy when the qualification is supposed to be $47,000 a year. It takes with some very creative lawyering on that one. The other type of bankruptcy that most individuals would look at is a Chapter 13. That's a reorganization, basically where you file a plan of reorganization with the court. You pay a certain amount to your unsecured creditors over a period of 3 or 5 years, and at the end of that time, your debts are discharged. All debts discharged except for domestic support obligations, alimony, child support, federal taxes to a large extent. Those are and student loans. Those are basically non-dischargeable. But the Chapter 13 has debt limits, a little over $1 million in secured debt, a little over $350,000 in unsecured debt. The other type is a personal Chapter 11. That's for someone who doesn't qualify for a Chapter 7 on income and has too many debts for a Chapter 13. It's much more complex, much more expensive, and a much harder process to go through. But for certain individuals, it certainly can work. So that is we said we were talking about the end game. Well, that's sort of the ultimate end game. Jeff
Ahren with Legal Aid Service of Collier County and the co-chairman of the Foreclosure Task Force. This event here tonight is a 100% pro bono initiative, and to sum it up very quickly, we're here because we care. We know that there's a lot of pain out there. We know that if you're not going through foreclosure, we know you probably know somebody, I'd almost bank on it, that you know somebody, friend, neighbor, colleague, that has gone through foreclosure, and you know the effect that it has not only on the individuals and their family members, their children if they have children, but also on their neighborhoods. And so one of the things we hope to accomplish through this initiative is to help homeowners, individual homeowners, make good decisions. Because when they make good decisions, that benefits not only their family and their family's future, but good decisions by these homeowners, they affect their entire neighborhood for the betterment and to the good. And if you look at it from a macro perspective, that helps our entire community. So we know there's a lot of pain out there, and we hope that this is helpful to those who are looking for some resources, and that's what I want to talk about. The first resource I wanted to talk about is my organization, Legal Aid Service of Collier County. We provide free civil legal assistance to qualified and eligible individuals in Collier County. They must be a Collier County resident. And we help on matters not only including housing and foreclosure, but other areas of assistance that folks may need, such as family law and many other areas. So please check out our website, which is listed on the screen there, or call our main number at 239-775-4555. Another agency I wanted to talk about very quickly, you heard from Michael Puhala at the start of the presentation. Collier Housing, the Housing Development Corporation, HDC as we call it, they do an outstanding job. Their services, like ours, are free to those who are eligible for their program. They have HUD certified foreclosure intervention counselors, and they do an outstanding job. Please give them a call. In tandem with Legal Aid, give us a call as well. And if you're a realtor or if you are on the governing body of a homeowners association, you can do yourself and your neighbors a benefit by directing those that are in trouble or falling behind on their mortgage to these resources if they can't afford an attorney, because that's what we like to do is to try to help people explore options to perhaps save their home or to find the best outcome possible in an individual circumstance. The Foreclosure Task Force has a website. We've been talking about it all night. This presentation will, in short order, be put up on the website along with the PowerPoint that you see on the screen. Please send your friends, neighbors, and others that need information such as this to the website, collierftf.com, and it has a lot of resources up there already. We're going to continue to add it and update content as we move forward. Additionally, a lot of people may not know about this. There's a Collier 211. A Community Foundation of Collier County has launched recently for Collier County a 211 number. You can simply, if you are in Collier County, dial 211 and get information. You'll go to an operator and he or she will direct you to resources that you may need, not just for nonprofit organizations, but also direct you to governmental or public agencies that can help. Frankly, almost any problem that you may have, you can call Collier 211 by pressing 211 on your phone and find out what the resources are that are available, far broader than what the Foreclosure Task Force offers. And please spread the word about that, because it's a great resource. It's a free call, to my understanding. Also, the Collier County Bar Association, there may be folks who can afford an attorney, but maybe they haven't been down here for very long. They don't know an attorney. Call the Collier County Bar, the lawyer referral service at the number listed on the screen. It's 239-252-8138. Also, the website is on the screen as well. Please call that organization if you'd like to find an attorney. Finally, makinghomeaffordable.gov is a website that was talked about. And community resources are very important, and you're going to hear a presentation in part 2 from both the Sheriff's Office, Collier County Sheriff's Office, Chief Jim Bloom, and Collier County Code Enforcement, the Director Diane Flagg. Let me give you a little teaser about what's going to happen in part 2, because you're not going to want to miss it. Up front, we're going to tell you about the latest foreclosure statistics, and these are obtained right from the clerk's office. You're going to want to know how the market exists right now in terms of foreclosure stats. But there's also a phrase you may have heard in the media, the shadow inventory. Very mysterious. We're going to talk about that. You're going to learn about why that is very important to understand. If you're an investor, if you're a realtor, or if you're just a member in the community, you want to understand what the shadow inventory means. It's underreported in the news, and it's perhaps misunderstood, so stay tuned for that. Also, I can't speak highly enough about the outstanding efforts of Collier County Code Enforcement and Collier County Sheriff's Office in terms of the very aggressive, proactive, and frankly innovative programs, initiatives that they've created to make our community safer and free of blight. particularly in the hardest hit areas of where foreclosure have hit our community. I think you're going to learn about some very interesting initiatives that have made our community not only safer and visibly free of blight, but also have made sure that it stays that way for our quality of life and also for property values. Please stay tuned, realtors and those on boards of associations. You're going to learn about what code enforcement can do for your organization. You're also going to learn about how you can cooperate with the sheriff.
We're going to start with part 2 of the presentation. Joining me here at the table is Mr. Stuart Kaye, who's a local contractor in town. Also, Mr. Keith Sipnick, who works with the Realty organization, and then Chief Jim Bloom, and I think we can figure out where he's with. I'm Diane Flagg, Director of Collier County Code Enforcement. First of all, in part 2, we're going to talk about the big picture and the coordinated community response, past, present, and future. The things we're going to talk about, you can see on the slide here. Just the foreclosures, the causes, the forecast, and then we're going to talk about blight prevention program and also the Collier County Sheriff's Office program to assist our community. First of all, let me just talk about the big picture in terms of the national situation. Nationally, you've seen the evening news where bulldozers are now moving into communities and bulldozing entire neighborhoods. You've also seen the evening news where communities are completely out of money. They can't address the blight that's occurring. The banks are not moving forward in foreclosing on the homes. So we're going to talk, Mr. Kaye's going to talk a little bit about the shadow inventory, but it's not a pretty picture. What I will tell you is that currently there's a lot of movement. Not only locally, but nationally, meaning that homes are selling, that there are multiple potential buyers for a single residence. But that's where the shadow inventory comes in. It's those homes that are out there that people have been living in these homes for maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year or longer. And the first step in the foreclosure, which is the filing of the less pendants, has not even begun yet. So those homes don't show up anywhere on the stats. And at some point, we believe that that point is going to be sooner rather than later, that those homes are going to start showing up, beginning with the first step of the filing of the less pendants.
My name is Stuart Kaye, and I specialize in helping underwater homeowners and their families get a fresh start on life and by guiding them through the negotiation process with their lenders. First, I want to congratulate each of you for taking the time and making this important first step to come here and educate yourselves about the process. It's no secret that the foreclosure crisis has been a huge debacle, and certainly Naples and Southwest Florida is far from unscathed. In fact, Southwest Florida has been considered in some parts ground zero and has endured some of the worst numbers in foreclosures in the United States. I'm going to share a couple of numbers with you, and it's not so much just to look at the exact number, but it's more to help give you a flavor of where we are today and possibly where we're going in the foreseeable future. There are about 200,000 housing units in Collier County today, and there have been about 26,000 foreclosures have been filed in the last 5 years. So that's about 1 in less than 8 homes in Collier County has a foreclosure filing. There could be a little redundancy in some refilings, but that's pretty much the statistic. Filing a lawsuit is one of the first steps in the foreclosure process, and as we look up on this chart, that's referred to as civil filings up there. And if we look just down the list from the real foreclosure activity started to gain momentum in 2007. Prior to that, there were barely a couple of hundred foreclosures every year prior to that. So as you look at the chart, you can see that the filings start to escalate in 2007, peaking in 2009, dropping back down in 2011. We're going to talk about 2012 in a moment. If we look at our next chart is regarding sales set, and that's another process along the foreclosure process. And basically, what that refers to is once a date has been set to move forward with the foreclosures. And if you look at those numbers, you see them ramp up and drop pretty precipitously in 2011. A lot of that is due to the robo signing and the bank's needs to stop their foreclosures for various reasons. But if you look at that bottom number during that 5-year time frame, you see that there are 18,947 sales set, and this is compared to the first column of 26,000 cases filed. If you look at the next column, if we go all the way across, we'll hold off on the third party for a moment, but if we go all the way across and we look at the total sales held, you can see again that the sales themselves start to ramp up. They begin in 2007, but they really start to ramp up, peak in 2010, and come down a bit, but pretty steady on the sales side compared to some of the other categories and columns we're looking at. But again, if we compare the total sales held of 11,666, and we compare that to the 19,000 plus cases set for sale, and we compare that to the 26,000 cases filed. Now, what does all that mean, you might ask? Well, different folks have different opinions, and I'm going to tell you what I think. But first, let's take a moment and dive into the meaning of some of these numbers just a bit. Civil filings, which is that first column, in layman's terms, a civil filing, once it's filed, and that's the first one of the first things that are done toward a foreclosure process, one of two things happens with a filing. Either it ultimately goes through the process and it's sold, and the home is sold at the courthouse steps, as in the total sales held, or it's not sold. If it's not sold, then the case, the civil filing, is either resolved or dismissed, or it's in process, somewhere between the filing and sale dates. A dismissal also means, it can mean and can often mean that the foreclosure has been worked out either through a short sale, a modification, and sometimes the foreclosure stops, but then it's refiled again. But this in process is a number that makes up an important part of what we call the shadow inventory. Basically, if we look at the total filings and we subtract those that are dismissed and we subtract the sales, what remains is that backlog of inventory, that shadow inventory, and that has been a pretty elusive number here in Collier County. It also helps us understand what the depth of foreclosures is, because it's one thing to know every year how many foreclosures are being filed or how many foreclosures are being sold, but it's another thing to know what may be lurking out there. So here's a little bit of information that might shed some light. Up until July of 2011, Collier County, along with every other county in the state, was funded and provided the funds to keep track of the backlog of cases. As of July 2011, there was a staggering 11,001 cases in backlog. So those are cases that had not gone to sale. They have not gone to sale, but they remained outstanding. Since July, the numbers have not been maintained any longer, but in talking to people and in looking at the numbers, I'm going to try and extrapolate a few things to show us where we are. So if we look at since 2011, the number of filings has exceeded the total sales. So if we look down at 2011 at 2270 of the filings, and we look over to the total sales held, there's 2,005. So again, we continue to have more filings, but also, as I mentioned, there are a certain number of filings that end up being resolved. That number varies somewhere, and there is an exact number, but it varies over time. We don't know exactly what it is now, but it's somewhere between 30 and 50%. So 30 to 50% of every case that's filed it ends up getting dismissed either because it's modified, it's a short sale, it's worked out, something happens. So if we look at now, we go to 2000. The next slide, please. So now we have information for the first 5 months of 2012, and we'll compare that with information from the first 5 months of 2011. And when we look at the filings, we see that our filings, unfortunately, are up about 75%, and the total sales held are up about 38%. But again, if we look at the number of 1243 and 919, the number of filings are exceeding the sales. If we take some assumptions and we say that a certain number of the filings aren't going to make it, they're going to go away, and if we use roughly 50%, just to kind of bottom line it, roughly what we have is we could remove approximately 1,700 homes from our 11,000 backlog, and really what we get are approximately 93 homes in backlog today. So we have approximately 93 homes that are in some foreclosure process, but they have not reached a sale date. Now, when you think about that, if you look all the way to the right at the total sales held, we've had approximately 11,600 total sales held in 5 years, and now we're saying we have approximately over 9,000 foreclosures that are in process that haven't gotten through and worked their way through the foreclosure process. There's going to be a certain percentage of those that will be worked out through a short sale, through a modification, through a renegotiation, through something, but the vast majority of those have the potential to go, and they will certainly be part of this whole negotiation process. So that number of that 9,000+ homes represents additional inventory, or the shadow inventory that we so often hear about, that's lurking out there and is going to at some point continue to put pressure on the rest of the values of conventional housing, because those homes have to be sold. A couple of other short points I want to make. If you could you go back one, please? Thanks, Diane. If you look at the third and fourth category, the third column says third party. What that refers to is when the sales are held, either the bank takes the property back, or somebody goes and they bid and they're the successful bidder on the property. If you look at the bottom, for the totals, you'll see of the third party sales there were 1,243, and of the total sales held there were 11,666. So roughly just over 10% of all the sales that take place on the courthouse steps end up being purchased by an end user or an investor, or an arm's length sale. The other approximately 90% end up going back to the bank, which again adds to the inventory. They'll be fixing it up. They'll be doing whatever they need to do. It will at some point make its way back on the market. So the question is, what's going to happen with these 9,000+ homes that are sitting out there right now? Well, first, banks, while the numbers have ticked up a bit in 2012, there's certainly, we don't see the tsunami of moving forward with so many of these cases that are out there, and I think it's pretty obvious why not, and that's that the banks are showing restraint because A, it's not a good time, and it's not in their benefit to push this through. And B, it's the banks are under a lot of pressure, and they're looking pretty bad by forcing so many of these foreclosures. So those are the numbers in a nutshell. They're not good, but more importantly, if you're facing problems, you're not alone, and there are options to help you get back on your feet. You don't have to go through the foreclosure process. There are people, there are opportunities that can help you. That's the purpose of this forum. Please, we all hope you take advantage. Thank you.
Keith Sipnick, I wanted to let everybody know also, like Stuart said, you're not going through this alone. There's many people in the situation, and you're a few of the people that want to get informed on it. One of the things, though, I will just bring to your attention is in Collier County, a lot of times you might feel that you're alone because of the way the empty and vacant properties and the properties that are people going through the situation, they don't appear like they are. There are certain other counties in the state, one I'm not supposed to say,